Item A+ information. Mrs. Stephanie Grisham will present information about the A+ program. Good evening, and welcome back.
I think I was here at this board meeting last year when they showed the video, so as a teacher, it's kind of refreshing to see that, sure, especially here on these cold days. All right, so this is my presentation just as an overview of what's happened since I've seen you last with A+. It is changing yearly. There's little changes that have happened. We had the big change from DESE to Missouri Department of Higher Ed in a couple years back, but they're also making changes as they go and see fit. So just as a review for you guys as well as those at home watching, the requirements of the A+ program, which is a program where students can receive scholarships after high school to a vocational school or community college, where tuition and fees can be paid for them to further their education. Students must be at an A+ high school for 3 consecutive years. That doesn't have to be the same high school. It can be if parents end up getting a job in St. Louis and the student's a junior, they can, as long as they go to an A+ high school, then it would carry with them. There is a military dependent exemption for this, so those that have a parent in the military do not have to meet this requirement. They also have to have a 2.5 GPA when they graduate, so starting grades 9 through 12 has to be a C+ average is about what that is. They have to have 95% attendance, again grades 9 through 12, cumulative attendance, and getting ready to send letters out to those seniors this year that are below and be asking them to do an appeal by March so that we can get them eligible fully. They also have to have 50 hours of unpaid tutoring, and I always say this is the work behind the program, but I believe it's very minimal for them to receive thousands of dollars for their education. We actually have students that go out through the day. The seniors actually are the ones that go out through the day and tutor within the schools, and then we also have students do after-school tutoring as well as during summer school and such. And so last week I had a student, she's just got placed this semester into an elementary class, and she made the comment that, oh, I just love A+. That's my favorite hour of the day. I just love going and helping those kids. So those are the stories I always like to hear. They also have the opportunity to do 8 hours of job shadowing that counts towards the 50. This was a new change a couple years back in which the idea of the Department of Higher Ed and A+, actually. A+ was intended for kids to be able to graduate from high school and then know then exactly what they're going to do, whether it's going into work, whether it's going to 2-year or 4-year, but they wanted to make sure that when graduation happened, they were on the right track for after high school. And so part of that would be for us to give the opportunity to the kids to go out and do a job shadowing in a career of their choice, and we placed many this year already. The one I like to talk about is we had a girl come in and she said she wanted to be a meteorologist or wants to be a meteorologist. And I'm like, oh, goodness. So I'm calling. She wanted, a station in St. Louis, and they didn't allow students to come in. But I keep trying and keep trying. Finally got a hold of the station in Jeff City, and she actually went for a morning to hang with the meteorologist and got to see his noon broadcast and came back, and she just had a great time. So I like seeing those go out as well. So not students that are just A+ can job shadow. Any student at Rolla High School can job shadow one time a semester as an excused absence. So we treat it kind of like a field trip. They are responsible for their work on the day that they're missed, but when they get to the high school, they have 6 opportunities to go out and job shadow. Now, I've had some that come back, and one went to a vet one time, and I asked her, I said, how was it? And she goes, that is completely not what I want to do. So in that sense, it's good, so they can to make that decision before they head to college. So I have some good stories to tell on that, and that's an exciting part that I see. Students also have to maintain good citizenship in school and outside of school. If there's with the avoidance of drugs and alcohol, if I hear of anything, obviously in school or even out of school, then I'm required to deny them out of the program. That's per state guidelines. And then as seniors, they have to make a good faith effort to secure any federal funds coming their way, also known as the FAFSA form. And so anyway, we just need confirmation that that's done. Reason being is the higher institutions will take federal money off of their balance first, and then we'll pick up the rest with A+. So Not necessarily always the rest. We're seeing some that may have a little bit of out-of-pocket expenses, but the majority of it is taken up. New requirement past couple years, which we're getting ready to initiate as of this year's juniors. We'll kind of see that next year come into play. All those students will be required to have the proficient or advanced score on the Algebra 1 EOC. Students are actually allowed to retake that test, and so as we get closer to EOC time, I will be targeting those A+ students that have a basic or a below basic and asking those to retake. If they new legislation has come through this year that if they get a proficient or an advanced on a higher math test, the geometry or algebra 2, then they would also meet this requirement. And so I foresee, some kids that are a little bit more visual, a little bit more spatial, and so some of those kids that may not be able to grab it in Algebra 1 could possibly gain it there in geometry. And then the new thing that's not fully approved, but I foresee that it going through, is also if they meet a baseline score on the ACT or the Compass test. And what is being proposed, which may not be set in stone from year to year, they may change that, is a 17 on the math portion of the ACT. And the reason they're going to math is that there's been research done that says if they are successful in a math class, then they're going to be successful in college, or more likely be more successful in college. And so that was one of the requirements that they added in because they were seeing a lot of kids, maybe take advantage of a semester and then drop out. And so they obviously want them to continue on. So that's where this requirement's coming through. So again, it'll be to the fire next year with this year's juniors. When they're seniors next year, we'll have to make sure all that's in place. So tuition reimbursement, this is used to be 6 semesters that they would get tuition reimbursement. Now they've changed it to what they call the 105% rule, which they will pay for 105% of the number of hours in their degree program. So for instance, if we have a student that goes to East Central for general studies and gets their associate's degree, it's a 60-hour requirement. A+ would pay 63 hours. Anything above the 63 would be out of pocket for that student. So again, a minimal price for them to pay if they have to take a couple extra classes, but the majority of it would be covered. So, and of course, I'm the data diva at the high school, as I'm called, and I do all the PBS data. And so of course, and being a math teacher, I love numbers. 496 students is what we currently have enrolled, so just under that 500 mark. But we have students adding every day. For the last year, we actually, for all the kids that we had 9th through 12th grade, we had 507 enrolled, so we need to get that up a little bit. But we did meet over the 500 mark. 8,300 hours approximately were the hours that were spent in our district last year by A+ tutors, and that was, from grades 9 through 12. That was how many were done in year 12, 13. If I take all those kiddos and I look at their total number of hours that they've spent within our district, that's right at 12,691 hours. So lots of hours that benefit. Every year I hear stories from teachers, kids doing such a great job in their classroom, and they miss them when they're gone, and the kids miss them when they're gone. So I've always been an advocate for this program just because of that. And I always tell students when I do their tutoring meeting, I hope you gain some intrinsic rewards when you go out and do the tutoring part, because you just never know when you can change the life of a child and turn them on to education, and then proceed on to a high schooler that's then going to go to a 4-year institution. So I tell them they have great power at a young age that they are. 1.9% was our dropout rate last year. So in the summer, I do a lot of work with Kim Feeler and Catherine Lyle and looking at our dropout rate, and I end up calling all the students on our dropout list to see if they're coming back, if they're doing a GED program and such. So that was actually down from the previous year, which was a 3.9 or 3.7, I believe, the previous year. So we actually gained some ground there quite a bit. State last year was a 2.5% dropout, so we are below the state, so that's always good. So then I'm just going to run through some numbers for our last year's class, since obviously the 2014 haven't gone out yet. We had 101 final A+ grads. 32 of those said that they were going to use the funds as intended. So that means that a lot of our students use A+ as a backup plan. As A+, they have 4 years from the date of graduation to use A+ funds. So I have a lot of students that do that just in case. And then I have known personally of students that have had to come back and fall back on A+ and use their backup plan. Also, students use it primarily for college applications and scholarship applications as something that they've been involved in with school. So there's lots of ways that students use the A+. 32 of them use the program as it was intended and set in place. So taking all those, I can't get a good exact number on the amount of scholarship because it depends on where they go and what they go into. For the senior class, they had about 7,300 hours total, 3.3 GPA. You can go through there. 72.3 was their average tutoring. 17 of those kiddos went well above the 50% or 50-hour requirement for tutoring. 17 of those had over 100, and our highest this year was 177, which was Kirsten Stanquist. So October 30th, we invite community members to the high school as another type of career orientation thing for our students. We call it Experts in the Classroom, and we have about 40 presenters come in and present to our students over numerous topics. The kids get to choose 2 presentations. We piggyback this with the sophomore Career Expo that they do at RTI and RTC. So the sophomores are over here at RTI and RTC while the juniors are and seniors are going through presentations at the high school. So sessions that we've done, or that there are just some there that I listed for you. So different variety we have, from engineers to veterinarians to mortician to military personnel. They always like to come in and talk to our kids and stuff too. So that's a good experience. Here's a couple of photos from that. Top left is the lady from the center, and she had them out there jump roping and doing push-ups and everything else. The one on the bottom left is DNR, and on the right-hand side bottom is Missouri State University West Plains. They always come every year, and their session is called In It to Win It. So they do a lot of talk about after high school and college stuff, not only just specifically at MSU. They do it in general, but the Minute to Win It game that was on TV a while back, they do little games like that with the kids and get them up, and that's always a popular one. And then the upper right is Nathaniel Mitchell from East Central, and so I was in there taking a peek at some of that, and he was talking about how, credit hours and this and that, and I as a teacher, I'm thinking, well, shouldn't they know that? But as I look about, they not always told things like that. So it was good and informative for our kids to see that as well. And then one of my purposes tonight is to have an action taken by you guys to change my handbook, just to kind of include some of the changes that have happened. On page 3, Nancy wanted me to incorporate it in here. I do have a copy if you actually want to see it, or I can send it to you electronically as well. At the top it just said student financial incentives will be available for a period of 4 years. And in the past year they've really wanted to stress that it's the 4 years from their graduation date on their transcript. And so I think we've made a change that the early grads that would graduate in December, not all the time was it stamped that they graduated in December, but now we're making that stamp in December. So if a student graduates early, they'll have from December of 2013 to December of 2017 to use A+. So they really wanted to stress that. So I modified that to state that from the date of graduation on the student's final transcript. Also on page 3, I had to, on part B, add at the end about the EOC requirements. Students must be proficient or advanced in the list of requirements. And then the big one that I had to add in was the new modification to the EOC requirement about, and this is, I did a screenshot for you. Everything in red was what I modified, talking about the proficient or advanced in not only Algebra 1 but Geometry Algebra 2, and also adding in the new part about the Compass and ACT tests. So those were, and basically at the end, I don't know if I talked to you about it before, if they don't meet that requirement, any of those requirements before graduation, and they graduate, they can still go ahead and take the ACT or Compass test outside, after high school, and once they gain that minimum score, then they would be A+ eligible. So
when are they going to decide?
really soon. It's supposed to be this spring, like March, April.
And that would affect the students who graduate in the spring?
No, it only, the juniors, the class of 2015, yeah.
How
So,
soon after graduation would they have a chance to meet that proficiency?
I think until I haven't really heard an exact date, but my first thought would be until they try, yeah,
With the
within that
4-year
4-year period.
4-year limits still start when they graduated, though?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Stephanie might just make note that EOC stands for end of course examination.
Oh, yeah,
Not
sorry.
everybody in
Sorry, the end of
the audience
course,
at
yes.
home may know that.
All right, that's
so.
one of those acronyms that's second nature to me, sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
it's the end of course assessment that's given after every course. Mr. Hanson may have some comments on those.
Yeah.
All right. And then these are kind of some of the things I'm finishing working on, and it'll evolve kind of into this next school year as well. Continue on educating about the new requirements. Again, I'm getting educated on it all the time because things are changing. So as much as I can stay updated, I try to keep everybody else updated. Every semester, if they are an A+ student, once grades roll and everything, I send an update letter, and within there I try to give an update of what's changed. Also, to keep on doing some of those job shadowings, I think that's a great opportunity for our students to get out and get a feel for what they're interested in or not interested in. And then as a new initiation for next year, this class that our seniors go to during the day, right now it's called the A+ tutoring class. It's a non-credit bearing class. It's basically giving the students time to do their 50 hours, but some of the counselors have come to me and said, well, have you ever thought about making that credit bearing? Yeah, I kind of have, and stuff. Reason being is because now that the new MISHA requirement that they have to have 6 credit-bearing classes and being able to have a passing grade in those, sometimes kids get, a failing grade and they may be in trouble with that. So, if they had A+ tutoring in their schedule, then that would be a non-credit. The rest would be credit-bearing, so they'd have to be to the gun about, passing every single class. And so I actually went to my conference, my yearly conference that I go to in November, and there is the A+ coordinator from Neosho has a cadet teaching class, and it just seems like, everything that she did, I could see myself being able to apply. And so it was actually after the courses were due, and I got in and talked to Mr. Hanson and Dr. Pritchett, and they so generously put it through that we can have cadet teaching next year. The changes basically are, yes, it's going to be a credit-bearing class. They're going to be required to do weekly logs. It may not be every week. It may be like every other week. Some of those things I need to kind of get hashed out as well. And then they're going to be required to do certain projects, like once a quarter have a project where it may be that they're teaching a lesson with the kids, or they're doing an activity with the kids that they're leading and came up with. And so I'm really excited to kind of work on that this spring to kind of get that going. So.
Stephanie, what's your sense of how that new criteria will affect kids who want to utilize A+?
As I look
Do
through,
you have an idea of how many kids would be?
there's not very many.
proficient,
As students are taking the EOC, I'll go through on my page in Infinite Campus and put whether or not they've met the requirement or not. And last year, I only had a handful of kids that I had to ask to do a retest. And so
Sounds a little bit like they're trying to shut the door just a tiny bit. That's my sense. Is that
right, and I personally, I feel sometimes too, it's like they're maybe to save a little bit of money, statewide to kind of, but also they don't want to be paying out to those that are just going to go and drop out, either. And so that's the whole idea of the math criteria, that they found if they're successful in a math class, then they're going to be more successful at a
Well, and also,
community
if they don't show, baseline proficiency in math in high school, then that's the extra classes beyond that 105% they would have to take in college.
'Cause they were saying-
Preparatory math, remedial math.
Right. And they were paying for a lot of remedial classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what they're really trying to accomplish, is push the bar up and ensure that success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I
the
really like-
teacher, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really like the job shadowing part. Are you getting community people to
Oh,
step
yes.
forth and?
Yes, I
They're
end
not
up,
just shadowing
I
their parents.
start in the community. And if I can get them in Rolla, then I definitely place them. We have kids, ride with the cops. They're very generous. Any of them, Highway Patrol, the city, or even the county, they're all the time. Oh, yeah, they can come. A lot of vets, a lot of teachers. Students like to go back to the elementary level and, stay there for a day and see the kind of the opposite side.
Is the hospital?
Hospital, we have to jump through another hoop because of the AHEC program. We have to go through their application, so it's doable. They have to have a TB test and other things like that. But those that really want to, see the hospital, then they do that, and we get them placed. So yes.
So the students that go to a 2-year school and finish with an associate's degree, is it true that they then pretty much must be accepted by one of the public universities in Missouri?
That I don't
isn't that true?
know.
All those hours
I know
transfer.
it's better if they get an associate's degree, and that is transferable more so than individual classes. I do know that part,
Right.
but
That's kind of a selling point, though. If a
yes,
student
yes.
goes to a
And
2-year
once
school.
they receive an associate's degree, then A+ funds are cut off. That's one of the criteria that they're done at that point.
My oldest daughter will finish her associates using A+ in the spring.
Yeah.
It's been great for her.
What kind of a credit will the cadet teaching be?
It'll be an elective credit.
Elective credit, not a practical art, or,
No, an elective.
I know somebody that's looking for a practical art.
Yeah. Well, they're changing for next year, like, some of the classes,
Yeah.
like yearbook and newspaper, I think are gonna be practical art too, so. Things
I'll make a
changing,
motion,
that's
we
education.
approve the changes.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
That's all I have. Nope, that's
Okay.
it.
All
Nope,
those in
that's it.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
That carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.